Reading about it can be difficult because when you have a human explaining it to you, they can sort of modulate and they can sort of soften certain things. And when you're just reading about it and you're reading about all the different things that can go wrong, complications, if it's a little clinical, it's a little cold, and it can be scary because it doesn't really put it into perspective.
Being diagnosed with a chronic illness is a team effort. Like the doctor, when you're diagnosed with a chronic illness, it doesn't stop at the doctor. It's almost a requirement that you have to seek out more information and even reach out to other people that have this disease.
Sure.
You want to hear the last time I shit in my pants?
Please do. Tell me the story. Okay. Tell me the funny. I had J-pouch surgery in 1999, and that's because my colon was fried. It was falling apart. It was no good anymore. It is something that you will need for the rest of your life to care for yourself properly. And it can be a really big issue to get the supplies that you need, especially if you have a circumstance where, you need something special. You need something instead of taking that part of the small intestine, the terminal ileum, and making it into a J, they try to shape like an S or a shape like a W.
Give me an A.
They might
Give
be
me a
bigger.
B.
It's like Jaws. It is really interesting to think about. And then I think about how long it must have taken. First of all, somebody had to come up with the idea, right? Like,
yeah, imagine being the first person
to have right?
To have the surgery,
and then somebody has to say,
hey, we're going to be doing this and this and this, and you might die, but please don't.
Before I had my surgeries, it was bad. It was, in the bathroom 20 times a day, bloody stools, anemic, no energy, fevers. It was just not much of a life, really.
So let's talk about the J-pouch Patient Bill of Rights. So we have the official IBD Care Bill of Rights by Dr. David Rubin. You also have your own, which I want to talk about. I'm sure there are times where they woke up in the morning and just shit all over the bed. And it's like, I can't imagine that. So, reason number 451 of why not to have kids.
I have two, But people in the IBD community are tough, and they are resilient, and they're really courageous in the way that they've shared their story because it helps other people. It helps other people to see that you can live your life and you can go to the beach and you can.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, to Mics One JoeySooch. I am Joe Sooch, and I'll be giving a mic to Amber. Amber is a huge inflammatory bowel disease advocate. She currently writes and edits IDB content for a website called verywell.com. Founded IBD Moms with another mother named Brooke Abbott, who I hope to interview in the future. Also a fellow podcaster called About IBD. So today you can sit back and relax while I'll handle the stress of moving the conversation forward. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. It's pretty cold here today, but we're managing. We're getting through winter.
Thank God for heating and climate change, I guess, right?
I don't know. It gets wacky. But winter in the Northeast, I'm in the Northeast. Winter in the Northeast is not the most fun, but we're getting through it. I think we're near the tail end of it now, so I'm looking forward to spring. So today's not too bad.
It's nothing worse than wearing a winter jacket and then sweating in the afternoon.
It's so funny because with IBD, one of the things that used to happen to me is the sweating. It's a lot better now, but in the winter, I grew up in Michigan and now I live in Connecticut, but you're wearing a heavy coat and then you feel the symptoms coming on and then you're sweating and then it's just the worst. Winter's just a bad time. I really don't know why I live in the Northeast or why anyone does really. It's like, why do we live where the air hurts our faces? I really just don't understand sometimes.
I mean, there are people that do it in Canada, just live there all the time. They come on, out of all the places. But I digress. This is all about IBD today. Today's episode will be about IBD, so I hope everyone is ready for that. For everyone that does not know, let's start with your diagnosis. Inflammatory, is it bowel disease or bowel disease?
Bowel, like small bowel or a large bowel.
Okay, but It's pointless that I asked that question because we'll be calling it IBD for sure for the remainder of the podcast. Can I just say can I just say that the disease has a normal English sounding name? Like you have ulcerative colitis, which is an abnormal reaction of the immune system called inflammation and ulcers on the inner linings of your large intestine. I have here you were diagnosed in 1989. Then you got this book. What is this book?
The book that they gave me when I was first diagnosed, that I can't remember the name of at the moment.
I do know the name of it, called the Crohn's
You know the
disease.
name of it?
Yeah, the Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis fact book.
Fact book. Oh, that's right. Fact book. Yeah, which was printed at the time by a patient advocacy group that was then called the National Foundation for Ileitis and Colitis, and has gone through a couple of rebrands since then, and is now the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. Yeah, that was, I remember it very clearly, being in the hospital, being diagnosed with ulcerative colitis after many months of having the symptoms, finally being diagnosed, being hospitalized, and my physician bringing me this book so that I can try to learn more about what ulcerative colitis was, because, of course, it's 1989. There was no internet. I used to have to go to the library to look up things in medical journals. That was fun. So this was one of the only things that we had available to us to learn more about the disease. It wasn't like there were patient handouts or anything like that. So that was the first thing that my gastroenterologist gave to me to learn about my disease. And what's interesting about it too is that it was pretty informative. Now that I think back on it, I'm sure there are people that have copies of it. I no longer have a copy. But it was pretty informative. It did tell me a lot about the disease at the time. Although I will say, reading about it can be difficult because when you have a human explaining it to you, they can sort of modulate and they can sort of soften certain things. And when you're just reading about it and you're reading about all the different things that can go wrong, complications, if it's a little clinical, it's a little cold, and it can be scary because it doesn't really put it into perspective. When you have a person that's going through it with you, that is more helpful because they can let you know sort of what your risks of these things might actually be and what the course of your disease might actually look like. So I think back on it now, and it was a great resource, but it was also difficult to take in information that way and to not have anybody sort of put it in perspective for me. So a lot of my journey since then has been helping to be that intermediate for patients and helping people to understand the information and put it in a way that makes sense to them and is frankly not terrifying.
Yeah, for all you young kids that are listening, a book is something that it's a paper with words printed on it, and you bring it home, and you don't need the internet. You need a light source to read it.
You do need a light source. Yeah, there's a few behind me. There's a couple right behind me. Some actual.
Those are antiques
books.
right now.
I still do.
They're worth millions.
They. A couple of them might be signed, but I don't think they're worth that much. Yeah, it was not. There was, that was how you got information. There was a book, or when I had the opportunity, I would go to a library, which is a big building with a lot of books in it, and hit the stacks, and find information, which in a regular library, there wasn't a lot about any disease, let alone, inflammatory bowel disease. But when I went to college and had access to a big college library, I was able to review medical journals. And that was actually a lot more helpful for me at the time to learn more about my disease.
I'm guessing that when you have a book, not much has been going on in terms of research or like clinical trials, because if we still had that same, like having a book now, even in the past 10 years, the book would be outdated in every 6 months.
Yes. It's kind of wild to think about it now, because when I was diagnosed more than 30 years ago, and then when I began my career as a medical writer and editor 20 years ago, things move. It's kind of funny because medicine moves either really fast or really slow. It just depends on, what you're talking about at the time. And until about, I don't know, especially the last 5 years and sort of the last 10 years, there really wasn't a lot going on. There was stuff going on, but I could keep up with it. Now, and like you were saying, you could write a book, and as long as you didn't get into like, I don't know, sort of really, theory or really the minutia of it, most of it would probably be correct. I mean, symptoms are symptoms are symptoms, right? They're the same 30 years ago as they are today, but our understanding of things like, pathology and who develops the disease, things like that have definitely changed since then. So if you wrote a book on it today, yeah, it absolutely would be outdated in not too long of a time. Maybe that's why we still don't see too many books on inflammatory bowel disease or even other diseases, except for the sort of personal experience or self-help, that kind of thing. Those can be really helpful to people.
It's tricky because it's it can go two ways. So one could be you have one book that's informational, but then the other way that it could be also misinformation now. So now you don't really you're only trusting your doctor, and sometimes doctors always don't know everything. So now you're kind of in a tricky place. You can,
and they
now
don't
with
always
the internet.
agree. So I mean, I think if I was going to pick up a book to learn more about a disease, I probably would look for something that was written by a specialist. But if I wanted to know how to live with the disease, I would certainly be looking for something written by a patient. What's great and what I do about IBD, the past several episodes that I've done, is I have a healthcare provider and then I also have a patient. And the great thing about it is seeing everything from both sides. So the healthcare provider has their perspective on things and the way that they like to look at things. And then the patient can say, okay, well, here's what's happened in my journey and why this is a good thing or this is not a good thing. And so it's been really great to have those conversations and to bring that to my audience so that you get both of those perspectives on a particular topic. So yeah, you're right. It's, books are maybe not the best way to get the latest information, but they can certainly be very helpful to you. And I mean, I'm a nerd. I love books, obviously. There's books behind me. There's books everywhere at my house.
Yeah, it's just crazy how much times have changed, and being diagnosed with a chronic illness is a team effort. Like the doctor, for one, they have so much on their plate, not just unless they're a specialist, but they have so much on their plate, and I'm sure they're going to be missing details just by accident. Like for you, you are living with it every single day, so you're always reminded about it. So it's easier for you to explain to yourself, especially now that you're an advocate, so you're good with yourself that you can help others too. And when you're diagnosed with a chronic illness, it doesn't stop at the doctor. It's almost a requirement that you have to seek out more information and even reach out to other people that have this disease.
Yeah, sure, because it's one thing to go to your physician and, okay, get your treatment plan and find out, okay, what might be side effects or, how do I do this and whatever. But then there's the little tips and tricks of living with it that you might only learn from other patients. So it's always worthwhile to get both of those perspectives. It's really helpful. And unfortunately, we don't get a lot of time with our physicians. I mean, we get a few minutes. And with something like IBD, ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, you're kind of like, especially if you're in a flare-up, you're going into your doctor and you're getting like these really big things dealt with. You're having inflammation, you're having a lot of pain, you're going to the bathroom a lot or not going enough or, whatever it is. But then there's all the other things that go along with it. We like to say that IBD affects the whole person. It's affecting your mental health. It's affecting your relationships. It's affecting your sexual health. It's affecting your whole body in various ways. And then it's also affecting your finances, your ability to get a job, and you have to have health insurance and all of these things. And getting that all dealt with in a 15-minute appointment just doesn't happen. So you're usually dealing with the big things. And then hopefully you get into remission, and then you're starting to deal with all of the other things that go along with it. But other patients can help you fill in those gaps. And something that we didn't have, when I was diagnosed, of course, is, there was no internet, no social media, no nothing. So it was really great. It was right about the time that I had my surgeries. So about the 1998, 99, where I started finding message boards, chat rooms with other people with IBD, so that I could learn more. I mean, I had wonderful healthcare providers, but there were things that they were just not going to be able to tell me because they don't live with the disease. They see their patients and they know what their patients experience to a certain extent, but they can't know everything. So that was really great to start connecting with other patients in that way. And that's when I also started realizing, like you were saying, misinformation. What's really interesting is I actually think it's gotten better. Like there's more information available, but I think that there's more good information available. I think back to that, late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of information, but it was usually pretty bad, it wasn't great. And now there's all this high quality information from, government sources, or, you can go to PubMed and search research and look at that, or there are, IBD centers who are putting out great information. There are patient advocacy groups who put out great information. And so you have really good choices now versus back then when the first things that would come up in your search would just be, they could be anything. They could be bonkers, telling you at best, something that would be ineffective, and at worst telling you something that might be harmful. So I think it's gotten better, and patient advocacy has just been a great way to help patients overall and help them find each other and understand their disease better. Because previous to that, you weren't going to run into somebody in the wild that had the same disease as you. You just weren't.
You didn't hang out on the street with a sign over your head saying, "I have IBD. Where are you guys?"
I thought about it. There were times I really did think about it. And what's interesting too is that it's a common disease. I'm sure I knew people that had it, but people, like you said, people don't go around with a sign. People don't tell each other, so we do now, but we certainly didn't then. So you were never going to find, maybe only through my doctors did I ever find other patients, or when I was in the hospital a few times, I met another patient. But other than that, no, like you just didn't find other people in the wild.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Like one of the symptoms that you keep shitting yourself. So that's not something you want to tell people.
Definitely not. And I love asking that question on my show. I ask the patients when they come on if they have any embarrassing or funny stories about their IBD. And sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with it, but sometimes, yes, it's a shit in your pants story. And
do you want to hear the last time I shit in my pants?
Please do. Tell me the story. Okay. Tell me the funny or embarrassing story of shitting your
I
pants.
don't have IBD, so I think that makes it funnier. Yeah, so I was coming from, I have a second home, so I was coming home and during the car ride, I had to go and okay, I could wait a little bit. And then the last 5 minutes in the car ride, I really had to go. And then my bathroom is on a multi-story home, and I was going up the stairs and I wasn't making it. So what I had to do, I just started pooping on the stairs. But I didn't have enough time, and what I had to do, I had to run into the shower because I didn't want it to get everywhere. So got on my shoes, I threw everything out. It was disgusting.
Yeah, it can be bad. The shower, hopefully you have, a shower that could handle that like a sprayer or something, that's helpful.
Taking the clothes off was horrible.
Horrible. Yeah. It's awful. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. We're taught when we're young that that's not supposed to happen to us. We're not supposed to do that. And, and then it happens. And and I've heard a lot of stories both on my show and then just talking to patients about the pooping your pants story. But also, a lot of people that don't live with a chronic illness have also pooped their pants. And I've heard those stories too. So that makes me feel a little bit better because I feel like it's just a human experience. And
you'll never forget it.
You'll never forget it unless you have IBD and it happens more than once, in which times, I'm sure I've forgotten more times I've pooped myself than I can remember. But, it's when you are open about the story and then you tell the story and we're all laughing and we're sharing it, it really takes the power back.
Oh, I'm editing all of this out.
It's your show. It's your show. You can do whatever you feel is right. But that's a good story. I have to say, I haven't heard a trying to get up the steps and pooped yourself trying to get up the steps story yet. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Was it on the steps too? Did you have to clean the steps?
No.
Thank goodness.
I saved myself. Yeah, it was not good. But yeah, I get my shoe help. It created like a place to go, like a holder, I guess.
Yep.
So, yeah, but yeah. Of course I'm keeping the podcast, but yeah, it was like maybe 5 years ago. It wasn't even when I was a child.
Yeah.
It was just a bad judgment call for me.
And you know what? I think most people have experienced that, whether they will admit it or not. Everyone's had a moment where they misjudged, but everyone with IBD has a moment when they've misjudged. And I live with a J pouch, so I don't have a large intestine anymore. I have my small intestine was fashioned into a sort of a rectum. I still go to the bathroom out of my bottom, but it's not the same. And it's the same kind of thing. Like, you could misjudge if you wait too long. There could be leakage, there could be seepage, all kinds of things can happen. And so it's just a different way of living. And you have to kind of be thinking about that in the back of your mind. Where the bathroom is, how long you can go after eating before you're going to need a bathroom, and how long you can hold it, and things like that. So car rides are not usually the friend of a person that lives with IBD. So
let's talk about the J pouch. So you mentioned that you have a J pouch, but you also go to the bathroom. I thought having J pouch doesn't give you the ability to poop anymore because it's all redirected.
Yeah, so I had J pouch surgery in 1999, and that's because my colon was it was fried. It was falling apart. It was no good anymore. It was totally inflamed, and so it had to come out. So when they take your large intestine out, which your large intestine goes between your small intestine and your anus, so you take that out, you got to go to the bathroom in a different way, right? So J pouch is done in 2 steps or 3 steps. So either 2 surgeries or 3 surgeries usually. Mine was 2 surgeries. The first surgery was they took out my large intestine and they took a small piece of my small intestine and brought it through my abdomen, which is called an ileostomy. So I had an ileostomy. That little piece of intestine that's outside of your abdomen is called a stoma. And then you wear an appliance over that, which catches the stool. So you're not going to the bathroom out of your bottom. During that same surgery, they took a piece of my small intestine. So they took the very end of my small intestine and they kind of sew it back up. So it's called a J pouch because it looks like a J. There's other ones too. There's different shapes. There's S and W, but J is the one that is usually done now. So they make a J out of it, and it makes an artificial rectum. So it can hold the stool. That's what it's for. So then the second surgery is they pop that stoma back in, sew up your intestines again so that it is one long contiguous tube again. And then your J pouch is attached to your anus so that you're able to go to the bathroom out of your bottom again and not out of the stoma that's on your abdomen. It can get a little confusing. It's really a lot more helpful if you have pictures. That's where the books come back in, to have pictures to understand what that all looks like. But I had that done in 1999. It was the surgery had been done for quite some time then. It has improved even since then. People have, really, really great. My outcome was really great, but people do really, really well with that surgery after having to have their large intestine removed for ulcerative colitis. So that's essentially how that works. And so I don't have a stoma anymore. It does get confusing when I go for different medical appointments because not a lot of people know what a J pouch is. So I'm describing it a lot. If it sounds like I describe it a lot, it's because I do. Because if I go in, for instance, to have a pouchoscopy, it's not a colonoscopy because I don't have a colon anymore, right? It's a pouchoscopy, so to look at the inside of my pouch. A lot of times, even then, I'll get asked, well, did you bring another bag so that we can change your appliance when you're here? And then I have to explain, no, I don't have an ileostomy. I have a J pouch. And then I get to explain what it is. And I've met lots of other patients that live with J pouches, which has been fantastic. But I've never met anybody in the wild. So I've never been out somewhere and just got to talking with someone and found another person with a J pouch. It's always through my patient advocacy work or my activism work. It's always that way. So it's pretty, I actually don't even know how many people have J pouches. I wish I did. I've tried to get those numbers and I don't even know if anybody knows, but it's not common.
It's a visible disease, but invisible due that you can just wear a shirt and that's the...
Right. Yeah. If you have, I had an ileostomy for 3 months in between my 2 surgeries, and it was really a very, very short amount of time. I didn't change anything. I didn't change what I wore. I didn't change anything. And nobody ever knew I went back to work. Nobody knew anything about it. And at that time, we didn't really talk about it. Now I think I'd probably be like, hey, Yeah, but no, nobody needs to know. And there's plenty of people out there. Matter of fact, when we get together for different events and I'm, with my IBD people, which has been, now it's been a long time, but like I even forget. I forget who has an ileostomy and who doesn't because you don't know. There's no way to tell.
It doesn't really affect you or the other person really much at all.
Mm-hmm. Unless you decide to tell somebody, they're not going to.
Yeah, but like even if you like, how often do you have to change a bag?
Well, that's going to be different from person to person. When I had my ostomy, I had the most beautiful stoma. I had the most beautiful ileostomy. I used to get like between 5 and 7 days out of an appliance.
Whoa.
But I've come to understand that it's going to be different for everyone. And some people have more challenging situations. For instance, if their skin around their stoma is breaking down or is damaged, or if they have a peristomal hernia, so if they have a hernia that's somewhere around their abdomen or close to their stoma, it can make it difficult to have an appliance that works well for them and that stays attached. Because once that stool starts to get under your appliance, the whole thing just comes apart. So I think, though, most people probably get 3 to 5 days out of an appliance in a particular one. But that's another thing that, talking about like misjudging. Like you might be like, I can get another day out of this, and maybe you can't. But I think most people try to get as much wear time as they can out of an appliance, but it's going to be different. I mean, I also know people that like to change more frequently, maybe not every day, but they just change more frequently because they are very good about staying ahead of it and changing it before it starts to become a problem or before the adhesive starts to break down.
So I'm assuming that you get it from your insurance. So like, how does it work? Like, do you say you need 30 per month, or like how does it work with insurance and such?
Yeah, that can be a big problem. I don't have the lived experience with it, but I just know from the people that I talk with and my friends that they're medical supplies, right? They're medical supplies, so you need to get them through, sometimes through a prescription. It really just depends on your insurance. In the United States, it really depends a lot on your insurance. And there are people that pay cash, and it's expensive. And so there are also advocacy groups that help with providing the materials that people need to care for themselves and care for their ostomies if they get in a pinch. Ostomy supply companies, manufacturers, the people that make the products, will sometimes send you like samples, things like that. So sometimes people do that to try out new products. But it is something that you will need for the rest of your life to care for yourself properly. And it can be a really big issue to get the supplies that you need, especially if you have a circumstance where, you need something special, you need something that works well for you in your particular situation. Outside of the United States, it can be better or it can be worse, because in places that have universal health care, I don't want to say that it's easier because everyone's experience is different, but there might be a better mechanism for you to receive your supplies. But then there are parts of the world where getting your hand on ostomy supplies is really difficult, really expensive. And then, of course, there's a lot of stigma associated with having a stoma. So that can really get in the way of people getting their supplies. So that's a big problem. And it's one thing that patients get together sometimes and share supplies. Somebody might say, I'm running out. Does anybody have? Like, I've seen where somebody has been traveling and has run out of supplies and is able to connect with another patient and, get something to just tide them over until they can get home or get their next shipment. So the advocacy community really comes together a lot in those cases. Of course, I wish that everyone had access to the supplies that they need all of the time. But, that's not our current reality. So there's always a need for unused supplies. For instance, when I had my ileostomy reversed, I had a fair amount of supplies. And so I brought them to my nurse because she had patients that could use it, that didn't have access to the things that they needed. And so she was happy to take those things, and then she could redistribute them to her patients as she needed. It's a long answer to your question, but...
I wanted to say I can relate a lot to it in terms of insurance. Like, I have a tube in my stomach for feedings, and, it requires a prescription to get it and get the supplies. And I also get formulas through the mail. And for me, I guess we're both lucky that insurance covers it, but it's extremely expensive. Like, the tubes online cost like $150. And that's a lot of money, and like I have to replace mine like every 3 months. It's difficult because like you have to live with it. You can't just like not do it. But I wanted to ask you. So you mentioned there are different J pouches. Like, why are there different J pouches? That's confusing. Ish.
It is. I don't have a really good handle on the history of all of this, but I can tell you the little bit that I do know is that J pouches were developed as a treatment, as a type of surgery, and then they're being done in different places around the world. And as they try to get better with surgical techniques and things like that, they try different things. So there were instances where instead of taking that part of the small intestine, the terminal ileum, and making it into a J, they try to shape like an S or a shape like a W.
Give me an A.
They might
Give
be
me a
bigger.
B.
It's like Jaws, right? So, because they would be bigger and hold more stool, right? And then maybe you could go longer between bathroom trips, because people with J pouches, I think the average is somewhere you go between like 6 and 8 times a day. I don't know how many times I go. I don't count. My medical team is always frustrated with me because that's like the first question when you have IBD. That's the first question they ask you when you walk in the doors. How many times a day do you go to the bathroom? And I'm like, oh, But also, too, that goes to show how unimportant it is to me and, how well I do with my J pouch. But anyway, so the other shapes might lead to being able to hold your stool for longer before you have to go to the bathroom, which would be great, right? To not have to go to the bathroom every couple of hours, but maybe go like, once or twice a day. But I think what happened along the way is that they just discovered that those didn't work as well, and maybe people could have more problems with them along the line. So I think now that the standard is pretty much the J. And if people are still making S's and W's, I don't know who would be doing that or where they would be doing it. But there are people out there that have those shapes because those surgeries,
Can I buy
done.
a vowel?
There are so many different types of surgery that can be done on the bowel, and then things that were done that were found to maybe not be so great, and then they don't do them anymore. Like, it does get really, really complicated. So sometimes when I'm talking to people, it's almost like, okay, start at the beginning. What kind of surgery did you have, and what's going on, and and what parts do you have left, and which ones are hooked up, and which ones are not, and things like that. So it can get really, really tricky.
It seems that once you get a surgery done, you're kind of stuck with whatever surgery they've given you forever.
Kind of. I mean, I guess it also depends on whether or not you have time. If you end up having surgery on an emergency basis, which I have met, quite a few patients that's what has happened. It has been like, oh no, you're having a complication, you have a perforation, you have a hole in your bowel or something like that. There's a condition called toxic megacolon, or fulminant colitis, which is where the colitis gets really bad, and then it could really lead to really bad outcomes, including death. So you might need to have that surgery on an emergency basis. And then, it's kind of like they do what they can do to save your life, right? And then you kind of just deal with it afterwards. When I was having my surgery, I had a little bit of time. I didn't have a lot of time, but I was 26 years old, and they told me I was a good candidate for a J pouch, and I believed them. And so that's what they did. And what we all agreed on at the time. There are other people who are a candidate for a J pouch, but who decide that they don't want a J pouch and they would prefer to live with an ileostomy, and that's a valid choice. And I remember clearly when I was having my ileostomy reversed, the first surgery, it was a lot, and so going in for that second surgery, I was a little bit like, why am I doing this? Like, having an ileostomy is awesome. Why am I going back and having more surgery? But I did, But if my J pouch ever does have a complication and I need to have it removed, then I would have to go back to an ileostomy, which would be fine. But it is a little bit like, you hopefully have some choices as to what can be done, but sometimes your choices might be limited if you're really sick.
Can we talk about how gnarly and amazing all of this is? That we can do all this connecting and disconnecting, and it's amazing.
I think about it a lot. Because it's a really odd thing to think about, how your body is different after you've had surgery, and so it doesn't look like the anatomical models that you would see, right? With everyone's seen, right, what a large intestine looks like, and then the small intestine is there, and it's like, well, my body doesn't look like that, So it is really interesting to think about. And then I think about how long it must have taken. First of all, somebody had to come up with the idea, right? Like,
imagine being the first person
to have a right,
to have the surgery,
and then somebody has to say,
hey, we're going to be doing this and this and this, and you might die, but please don't.
you might die, but let's give it a shot, totally. And then, what did those people live through? And I think about it a lot too, because I also think about how grateful I am, to the people that developed the surgery, to the people that allowed themselves to be operated on, so that more could be learned about how to perfect this surgery and make it better, and the suffering that people must have endured. And I'm just super grateful. And I found my surgeon was amazing, brilliant, just fantastic. Couldn't have asked for a better team, really couldn't. And I'm just I probably do actually think about it every day. I probably do think about it every day, about how grateful I am, because with the ulcerative colitis, before I had my surgeries, it was bad. It was, in the bathroom 20 times a day, bloody stools, anemic, no energy, fevers. It was just not much of a life, really. So yeah, it is really wild to think about it, but I'm always just so grateful for the people that also just want to learn gastroenterology, right? I mean, think about it. Like, I used to ask physicians that came on my show, I used to ask them why they went into gastroenterology, because I thought that was a good question, right? Like, why do you want to study butts? I mean, it's more than that, but it is, it's, you put a flexible tube with a light and a camera on the end in people's butts and look around and see what's in there. And I'm grateful that you do it, but like, why?
I don't know like where they get the fascination from, like what triggered them to like, hey, we're gonna do this today.
I mean, I've heard some of the stories, and I don't know if it's the same way in other specialties, but in gastroenterology, a lot of people say that they got into it because they have a personal connection. Like they had a family member who lived with a digestive disease, or they have one themselves sometimes, and so they want to get into it and make life better for patients, which is amazing. And then another thing that's interesting about gastroenterology, that it's maybe a little bit different than other specialties, is that it's the medical side, the diagnosing and prescribing medications. It's that side. But then there's also the side of like procedures. So doing like endoscopy procedures and stuff like that. So there's a lot of variability, and it's not, the same thing every day. And there's just a ton of digestive diseases. So I think there's always something new to learn. So I think it's just really a fascinating field. And that's why a lot of people go into it. And I'm always grateful that people do find it fascinating and want to do it.
Well, I am not the fascinated people. So, so let's talk about the J-Pouch Patient Bill of Rights. So we have the official IBD Care Bill of Rights by Dr. David Rubin. You also have your own, which I want to talk about. So I have here, J-Pouch education for patients should be formulated by the GI and colorectal surgery team. Patients should be offered and encouraged to have ongoing touch point with their digestive health specialist. A dietitian should be part of the team caring for patients with J-Pouches. Sexual and reproductive health impacts of a J-Pouch should be discussed with every patient. Care providers should be educated about J-Pouches prior to interacting with a patient, and patients should be given clear instructions of which of their care provider to contact in the event of pouchitis or other pouch-related problems. When J-Pouch problems are not resolvable with the expertise of the current team, patients should be offered a referral to a J-Pouch specialist. So why is it important to have these Bill of Rights created?
Right. So I was inspired by Dr. David Rubin, who came up with the IBD Patient Bill of Rights, which, don't ask me to tell you what they are. I can't remember what they are right now. They're easily found by anyone who wants to look for them in a search. I wrote that up after I've experienced it these last 20 years with my J-Pouch. But the last time I went in to have a medical appointment, and I had to explain again what a J-Pouch was, I think maybe too, I'm just getting a little older and a little crankier, because I was kind of like, okay, you saw that I was on your patient roster today. You saw that I was not a regular sort of healthy woman of my age, that I had some stuff that went on, and you didn't take a minute to look it up. Instead, you asked me when I walked in the door, and I was tired and not feeling well, and I had to explain it to you. And so I started thinking to myself about how it would be so much better for patients like me and others. This could probably be very easily adapted to other disease states as well, that if people knew more about it before you went in to see them, it would take so much stress and upset off of you when you went in to have something maybe related to your J-Pouch and maybe not dealt with. And I also am concerned about what I hear from other patients as they have their surgeries and go through that process, and then as they start their journey of living their life and adapting to life with a J pouch. And I say adapting because you have to train your J pouch. You have to, you have to care for it in certain ways. You have to care for your perianal skin in certain ways. You have to learn what you can eat and what you can't eat. And then you have to learn what are some of the diseases and conditions that can occur in a J pouch. And so many people, I think, are unfortunately not educated very well after they leave the care of, who's ever caring for them, a colorectal surgeon and or their gastroenterologist. And they leave that care and then they go off into the wild, and then something goes wrong, and then it's they don't have anywhere to turn. They don't know who to go to or what to do about it. It would be so much better for patients were this Bill of Rights instituted, and if we had this available to patients so that they understood the implications of the surgery, how it's going to affect your whole body, not just your J pouch and how many times you go to the bathroom a day, but how it does affect things like your sexual and your reproductive health, how it affects your mental health. You don't, usually come out of major surgery the same way you went in. It affects you. And you also need help with diet and nutrition. Some people are sent home with a little diet plan, but then they're never told that they don't have to follow that diet plan for their entire life. That's just until they recover from surgery, from the acute inflammation and all of that, and that their diet could be expanded later on. But you need help with these things. It's not just something that you're going to know. And I feel like a J pouch is rare enough, and diseases of the J pouch are rare enough that it is not dealt with effectively. And I really feel for patients who are just seemingly left on their own and are not, supported throughout their entire journey, and that their J pouch and their overall health could be better cared for if we had some of these things in place. So, as usual, I think some of the best content I create comes out of when I get mad and cranky about stuff, and then I sort of sit down and find a way to hopefully channel that into something a little bit more meaningful. And so after so many years of explaining J pouches to people, I don't know if I wrote about it or not in the blog post that I wrote about that, but that I went in one time for an x-ray for something just like my kidneys or something, right? So, and nobody asked me about surgeries. Nobody asked me anything like that. And they take an x-ray of my abdomen and then they're like, your abdomen looks a little different than other people. Like, what happened? And I was like, well, you didn't ask me. You didn't ask me that, So now I have to explain J pouch to you and all of that. And then also, they don't really know what they're looking for because, my intestines are not in the place that other people's intestines are. So there's not really a framework there for them to work from. They would need a specialist, need a specialist to help me when I have issues. And there are some wonderful J pouch specialists, and I wish more patients had access to them because I think a lot of problems can be avoided. So yeah, that was that came out of, my being mad, and so my going on a little rant about how we need to care for people with J pouches better.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned it before that, like, once you get diagnosed, it doesn't stop at the doctor's office. You have to seek out more information, and your Bill of Rights provide almost a solid foundation of, I guess, categories of where you should look for more information in, because it's not complete detailing what to do, but hey, be aware of these things, and you have to seek it out. So if people are listening, go on aboutibd.com, and Amber has a whole bunch of great articles to help you in your journey. Like, you have it for people in the journey, and then you have for moms whose child has IBD too, because that can be difficult in itself because the child definitely not going to know anything. And it's definitely hard to it's definitely hard to relate sometimes or know what problems they have because kids are dumb and they don't know. And I'd be petrified handling them because like I'm just brainstorming here. Like they'll just pull the J pouch off and like shit everywhere and like like I had my story of shitting my pants. Like I'm sure there are times where they woke up in the morning and just shit all over the bed. And it's like I can't imagine that. So like reason number 451 of why not to have kids.
I have two, you know. But it's true, and watching your kids go through, and of course pediatric IBD is a whole other animal, you know. It's entirely different than adult IBD. But watching your kids go through something, you know, I mean, I'm so fortunate my kids are really healthy, but they've had their things, you know, like you know, everyone does during their life, and watching them go through it. And what's really funny too about your kids is that, I don't know, man, sometimes I will put up with some stuff, you know, like I will explain what a J pouch is for the 500th time in my life to somebody who I think should already know what it is. But when it comes to my kids, man, I will fight tooth and nail to get them what they need when they need it. You know, it's a whole different thing. And moms of kids that live with chronic illness or who live with rare disease are some of the most empowered. I mean, they get stuff done. You know what I mean? Like they really, really get stuff done because they've learned how, and they've learned the hard way, you know, how to be an empowered patient and how to advocate for another person. And it's not easy and doesn't come naturally. It's something you learn along the way, usually after making a couple of mistakes. So yeah, having a kid with an illness is really difficult. And as far as pooping themselves, like, well, they poop themselves until they're like really old. Like I always tell people, like, you're just going to be cleaning diapers. You're just going to be like, toddler diarrhea is awful. You know, it's just a whole, so yeah, you know, if you're going to have a kid, be prepared. There's a lot of poop involved.
No, I said if I want to have a kid, I'm going to adopt a 17-year-old, like give like every single bad stage, and then like, I can go to college with them or like play catch with them and be like totally awesome.
Just all of the good parts. None of the difficult parts. I like that. I think that's a solid idea.
So I'm going to talk about a story, and then I'm sure you'll pick it up as I go, but I'm going to set it up for you and the audience. So you were on a low-fiber diet. You stopped bleeding. Well, did it back in like 1990s or so. So you are on a low-fiber diet. You stopped bleeding. You were talking to your specialist, and he asked you what you missed the most when it comes to food. And you said...
I said I missed having a McDonald's Big Mac.
Yeah.
Isn't that a weird thing to say? I think I was 16 or 17 at the time, you know? Yeah, and things got better for me. I had been really sick and got a little bit better, and he was helping me to figure out how to expand my diet because I was eating like, you know, just like mashed potatoes all the time, mashed potatoes and chicken and mashed potatoes, you know, stuff like that. And he says, yeah, what do you want? And I told him, I said, man, I really miss having a Big Mac. And he literally, like right there, reached right into his wallet and gave, I don't even know how much a Big Mac costs today, but gave me like $5 and was like, on the way home, stop, get a Big Mac on the way home, celebrate, you know?
Yeah, it said even an article that you don't even eat fast food, so I'm wondering where it came from.
You know, one of the great things about having a J pouch is that I eat anything. I really do. Like, my diet it's not true for everybody. Everybody's different, but like I can eat a lot of things, you know. I try really hard to have a healthful diet because that's important. But at the same time, you know, I also know I'm still going to die one day. So I'm going to drink coffee. I'm going to drink wine. And every so often, you know, we have some fast food. So because I want to enjoy my life, you know, I mean, I had all of those years while I was living with the ulcerative colitis where my diet was so restricted. I think about it now, like I don't know how I lived like that. Like I really don't, And so it's better now. And so I just I'm not going to, not going to tell you that I am perfect.
No, it sounds. I feel like some people should have skipped the whole taking medication to not get the J pouch to get a J pouch so they can have like a normal diet again.
It's kind of funny because I don't know, man. It's like you would really hope that you could get on a medication that works and get on a treatment plan that works and get yourself healed and feel better and not have to have surgery. But I've also talked to a couple of people who were like, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I would just rather have the surgery. It's just, just everybody's different. And, my choices made perfect sense to me and other patients' choices make perfect sense to them. And it's all about what you're looking to get from your life and how you want to live your life. And so, I mean, I'm also grateful that we have these choices available to us, because it was so bad. Previously, we have more medication choices. We have more evidence about lifestyle changes that can help. Back when I used to be going to the stacks in the library, there just wasn't a lot of information. And I definitely tried a lot of things that we know now that they don't work, but we just, we were just trying anything because we just wanted to be better. People just want to feel better and be able to go about their life and be able to hang out with their family and not really worry about where a bathroom is,
It's just kind of like you're trading a pros of cons of, and then also surgery is also a huge deal too. Like everyone would do anything to avoid a surgery, but it's a very difficult decision. Like I was talking to someone that had IBD yesterday, and he had oysters, and he had this huge flare where he had to go to the hospital for 4 days, and like
man.
he seemed to be on the path that he had to get a J pouch soon. Because he said all the medicine he's been trying are not working anymore, and so I don't know. It seemed like you live a more pleasant life now with a J pouch because you're able to not have to monitor what you eat really ever again and can just enjoy it. It's just I would say a medium-ish inconvenience with it, but it's almost hidden because like you kind of have the same, like you can go to the bathroom, change your J pouch. Like no one can question you going to the bathroom. It's just everyone goes to the bathroom. Like so it can be very hidden, but like you mentioned, like sexual and attraction and all that can definitely play a huge role in not wanting to get it because it honestly doesn't look great and there's no way to really like hide it, especially if you're like in a bathing suit. It's just gonna show. So I can definitely understand that.
And ileostomy, there's not. Well, I mean, you can. I mean, there's different ways if you want to, or you don't. If you don't want to hide having an ileostomy, like you don't have to. I mean, my J pouch surgeries done today are usually done, if they can, they do them laparoscopically. So they make a couple of small incisions. When I had mine done, it was done open surgery. So I have a very big incision that's goes above my belly button, like to the middle of my chest and then all the way down to my pelvis. And it doesn't look like much now because it's 20 years old. But when I was 26 and I had this big, they call it a midline scar is what it's called. Yeah, I didn't put on a bikini. I was like, that was my choice. I wasn't comfortable letting anyone see that scar. People do it now. They will wear what they're comfortable in, and it's just it's fantastic and it's amazing. And people are so courageous in how they share their journeys. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, it takes a lot of self-esteem to do that.
Yeah, there's all sorts of people on, Instagram who share their journey really openly and on YouTube as well. And, not everyone is kind. I'll just put it that way. Not everyone is kind. And so it can be risky, but people in the IBD community are tough, and they are resilient and they're really courageous in the way that they've shared their story because it helps other people. It helps other people to see that you can you can live your life and you can go to the beach and you can wear lingerie and you can get married and you can, and you can have children and all of these things, even though you're living with IBD.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's a very conflicting because, like, I have a severe disability, so I guess we're in the same mindset of, like, showing our bodies, but it's always conflicting because you don't want to really make others uncomfortable because we do make other people uncomfortable by default because it's different, it's medical, and I get that, and I get the reason why I should hide myself, but like at the same time, it's like I like to rule break too, so like I don't know, it's like I understand it from both areas, and I don't know like what is right or what is wrong. Like sometimes I feel like maybe all disability people should be censored a little bit, just because it is a little bit outrageous for the regular person.
Yeah. I always make the joke that, like, I don't wear clothes for me. I wear them for you. You know what I mean? Like, especially when I'm seeing some of my healthcare providers who, you're having an exam, a gynecological exam or a gastroenterological exam. And, sometimes your healthcare provider will say, I'm sorry, I know I'm going to make this as quick as possible, whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. Do you think there's anybody between here and Detroit that hasn't seen me naked? It's like, it's fine. I don't care, anymore. But I care if I were making someone else uncomfortable. So your point is well taken with that, especially if someone is living through something where it might cause them upset, to see, because there can be medical trauma is a big thing, and in IBD it happens to a pretty significant proportion of patients come away from all of the procedures and the different things with medical trauma, and so you'd never want to subject somebody to that, but yeah, your point is well taken. At this point in my life, I don't care who knows or sees me, my scars, whatever, for me. I care how it is affecting other people and how and other people also includes like, your family. Like you have to think about that, like my kids. I'm a constant embarrassment to my children. They're almost 12 and 14, and because I have no fucks to give about pretty much anything anymore, I will sing or will dance or whatever, and they don't like that stuff. It's embarrassing to them.
So you keep doing it.
So I keep doing it, absolutely, like all of the time, because that's fun for me. But I would never want to embarrass them, like truly with something, really bad.
Yeah.
So I think about it that way, but I understand your point completely. There's two sides to it.
I mean, the way I kind of justify it on like, at least on Instagram, is that I didn't force you to follow me and you have the option to not follow me. And that's just, it gives me my freedom to do what I want to do. And if you don't agree with it, then you can unfollow me and move on.
Absolutely. That's something that I truly don't understand is if something is going on a social media account that you are not aligned with, you cannot follow that account. Like, it's fine. You can go. It's fine. You can do all sorts of things now, right? You can snooze, you can mute, you can unfollow, you can block. Like I randomly find that I'm blocked by random accounts that I don't know anything about. And that's fine, because if I am, putting something out into the world that you find troublesome in some way, that's fine. You don't have to interact with it, or you don't have to consume it. Like, that's totally fine. I think about that a lot also when I'm producing my show, because I'm keenly aware that I am asking people to come and talk to me about some of the worst experiences of their life. And not just talk to me. I mean, they are talking to me. Hopefully they forget that there's a microphone in their face. But it's going to go out into the world. And a lot of other people are going to hear it, including people that they know. So that is a significant responsibility. And I think about the ways in which, I can be responsible and handle that in a responsible way all of the time. So I would never want to make somebody uncomfortable, but at the same time, we all have to take responsibility for our own social media usage. And I see it happening a lot, particularly in the IBD community around ostomies, around ileostomy or colostomy, where someone will just come in and comment, on Instagram or YouTube and just say something like, why do you have to show your bag or something like that? And it's like, well, you don't have to look at it. You can just move along. Like, don't you have something better to do than to make that comment? That's my thought too. It's like, I'm a busy person. I don't have time to comment on stuff that I don't like. I just say, I don't like that. And I move along, So it's like.
But on the flip side, they're the one that actually help you more because they watch your video and comment and more comments and like bring up your video. So they're going to see even more. So they're really making the problem worse.
I know. My husband and I talk about this sometimes because he's a content creator as well. And so sometimes it has happened where he has created something and then there might be a little fight going on in the comments. Or should I say fight? I don't know. Disagreement, heated discussion. And I'm always kind of like, well, that's engagement. So let them go ahead and duke it out. Let these 2-3 people, however many there are, let them duke it out in the comments because that's just more engagement for you. And it's just all upside for you. As long as you don't, have your feelings, really and truly hurt by it. I mean, sometimes people have valid points and I'm always willing to listen, but sometimes people just want to fight. And if they want to fight in your comments section, that's fine because like you said, that just draws more attention to what you're doing and it can only help you.
Exactly. And I'm sure you get a lot of comments saying like, hey, try this diet or try this thing to cure you.
All of the time. All of the time. And I try to present very evidence-based information. So
they don't care.
I know. I work really hard at it. I'm very intentional about it. But yes, all of the time. I mean, I'm constantly, and I'm also a little brutal about, I will just delete your comment. Do you know what I mean? If I feel like it's harmful because someone has come in and said, everybody with IBD should just go out and eat some tree bark and that's got all the compounds that will make you feel better in it, like I will just wholesale delete that comment because it's my page or it's my account or it's my whatever, and it's also my reputation. And so I'm not going to put up with that. And so I will just, I will delete a comment or I will bounce people if I feel like they're not, they're presenting misinformation, especially if it can be harmful.
I did troll with them, so I did go along with whatever they're saying. Like some I try to get money out of, like, what will help? Money, please. And I'll like send them my Venmo account.
So I have a former colleague who will do that on her accounts because she's a public person and she's an author. So she will get lots of wild things and she will troll people like that. And usually she will come back at them and say something like, my consulting fee is X number of dollars an hour. How would you like to pay me? Things like that. So yeah, the same thing. I have another friend who, when he gets the phone calls for like just anything, but the example that comes to mind right now is the extending your car's warranty phone call that we all joke about. And he will just keep those people on the phone and just like talk to them about whatever until I think they usually just hang up on him, that's a fun thing that he likes to do. But yeah, no, I don't do either one of those things. I don't think I'm that bold.
No, and I put it on and then I just put it on my Instagram story so everyone else can enjoy it.
I've seen a lot of that too, where people will take a harmful email or comment that is sent to them and will post that just to show what it's like to be a patient advocate and to have people come for you all of the time. I think about it now in the early days when I started writing and there wasn't social media, and some of the emails that I would get, I just, obviously they're long gone. If an email was truly upsetting, I I might email the person back and say, thank you so much for your interest, and then just leave it at that. But then I would delete it. I didn't keep them. Sometimes now I wish I had some of those things to share, some of the wild, the accusations that people make against you, or just, the things that they say that, oh, you should keep these things private. And why do you write about these things and stuff like that? And it's like, well, I write about them because you're emailing me and telling me that they should be kept private. So, so I'm going to make it more public. How about that?
You need like a pretty high level of self-esteem to be in the internet world and producing content, because you did get these crazy people. I don't know how they're like alive.
And to not be, and to not sort of like take it to heart, and to say that just because this person says, whatever they're saying, whatever harmful thing that they're saying, it's not true. Whatever it is that they're saying to you.
You can't talk like this with them. So the best way to troll them, man. I have too much time on my hands.
Well, that's another thing, is that, like, if I ever do have more time on my hands, I would certainly. As it is now, I'm just like, oh, well, I don't need you in my life, so we're just gonna block. Something that I think about a lot is what another friend of mine termed disingenuous engagement. The people that comment or send you a DM or whatever, and they're not really looking for what it is that they're, asking you for. They're just trolling you, kind of, in a way. And that's really frustrating to me too, because it takes up my time. And there can be people who really do need help, who I would like to be able to help. But sometimes I have an inbox full of just garbage, that's just not, it's not.
Well, the thing is, you have to read every email, because it can be like a diamond and a dozen kind of thing.
Totally. And so, I remember somebody said to me years ago, well, don't you just like delete all the random emails? I was like, no, I don't, because like you said, I don't know, 90% of them might be something that is not actionable, or it's not something that you need to engage with. But every so often you do get somebody who's reaching out to you for advice or help, or sometimes people have like really good content ideas too. Like, that's what I love, is that when somebody contacts me and says, hey, you know what? Like, I have a really good story. I would really like to tell you my story. Or my friend has IBD and has a really great story. And those are the things that I really love getting. But it's all of that disingenuous engagement that it can be a little bit of a slog to get through all of that, to get through those, to find the diamonds. Yeah.
Yeah, like if someone's trying to troll me, like, good luck trying to be better than me, because I'm like an expert in this stuff. Like, I'm perfect for this medium.
You're pretty good at it. Well, how do you feel when someone starts trolling you? What if someone makes a personal attack at you?
I'm better than them, so I have no problem with it. Like, if they go deep, I'm gonna go deeper. They can't compete.
That's good. I love that. That's fantastic, because it's things are hard enough. You don't need people just jumping in your shit for no good reason.
No, frankly. I'm like the final boss here. Like, you're going down. I'm gonna make sure, and I'm gonna put it on my Instagram so everyone else sees it too. Like, I have no mercy.
That's good. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do.
To me, it's entertaining, honestly. Like, I like feed off people trolling me, because then I just perfect my craft even more, and it's just fun to me. Like, but at the, like 2 hours later, I just forget about it and move on. And there'll be just some other dumbass coming at me and like, don't even try. I'm in the big league. You're just you're playing wiffle ball, and I'm in the major league. So.
That's good. I'm glad for that, because I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I do get a little twinge if somebody lets me have it. But
well,
I try not to.
People have said to me, like, if you don't drink Pepsi, you're going to die.
Don't drink Pepsi. No.
And I'm just like, okay, like, thanks, I'm cured.
And I mean, it is kind of funny when people come at you with those type of things, especially for me, living with this disease as long as I have, because I'm like, well, I never heard that one before. You know what I mean? It's like, come on now. Like, do you like, this is what I do like all day. Do you think that I've not heard that before or not tried it or whatever?
No,
or
I love when someone comes to me with a new insult, because like I add it to my repertoire of insults, and then they're just giving me bullets here. It's just
right. You're just going to, turn it right back around at them. I love that.
yeah. So we're going to go back to you now. So you have an article called Coming Clean About My IBD Mistakes. You place a huge emphasis on long-term care with your health care. What does long-term care mean with a J-pouch and IBD?
One of the things that I recently got into on an episode of about IBD as well is this idea that when you're diagnosed with IBD, that you have to come to some kind of an understanding that it's a lifelong condition. And there are people that will argue with me about that too. That's fine. But it's not something that's going to leave you. So it needs to be managed throughout your life. And I don't know that everyone comes away from their diagnosis process understanding that. Because we're used to things that go away, right? We're used to getting a cold and it goes away, and you get an infection, you take antibiotics, it goes away, and a chronic illness doesn't go away. That's why it's chronic. So you have to learn that it's not going anywhere. You can try to ignore it. You can pretend like you don't have it. I have certainly done all of those things, but it's always literally going to come back and bite you in the ass. So I learned that I couldn't ignore what was going on. Ignoring what was going on was very bad and led to worse outcomes for me. And so it's one of the things that I like to talk about in my advocacy and my activism work, is that people need to understand that in whatever fashion that they come to it, they need to come to the recognition that IBD is here in your body and needs to be dealt with on a daily basis. And that's a bummer. But if you don't take care of it and you try to ignore it or not deal with it, it can get worse. It can get bad. And it you can end up with complications that are not reversible. And so, I also like to flip it and make sure that we're letting our healthcare providers know how they can do better too, right? So that when their patients are leaving their office after a diagnosis, that they're not leaving thinking to themselves that they're going to take this medication for a little amount of time and then it's going to get better and then they can stop taking their medication, because it might not work out that way. They might need to take it for longer term. And so I think setting expectations is a big thing with chronic illness. And so that's one of the things that I like to hit on with my advocacy work. And I also like to tell people how, in the places that I've failed, it's like, I've definitely done things wrong. I've probably done 10 things wrong today. So, just to be realistic about it and to let everybody know that, yeah, you can be an informed, empowered patient, but you can still make mistakes. And you can also have days where you just say to yourself, man, I don't even feel like dealing with this today. I'm going to go down the street and have a Diet Coke and a Big Mac and just, to hell with my diet and everything else,
Yeah, it seems like you're saying that it's better to tackle it early when you're still medium okay versus when you're really, really bad, because you mentioned that it could be irreversible damage and it makes your comeback 10 times harder. So it's better to see the problem, recognize it, do something about it now, and you'll have a much easier and healthier life.
Totally. But I mean, I also understand it's not easy. It's not easy to come to terms with these things, especially when you're young and you're diagnosed young. And I mean, I know what that's like. Your friends are all doing what they're doing, and you have a completely different set of problems than the ones that they do. And as a mother, I have a completely different set of problems than other mothers, my age or who have children of similar age to mine. And so you're always a little bit different. So however you need to come to that realization, whether or not it's working with the mental health professional or it's working with the spiritual advisor or however you come to it, it's a good idea to sort of try to make some kind of peace with it. And you can hate your IBD, you can, hate what's happened to you, you can hate your treatments, you can, like, whatever you're feeling is what you're feeling, and they're all valid, but at some point it's got to be dealt with, because it can get worse and it can get bad. And you'd be better off getting the treatment that you deserve. Everyone deserves to have high quality treatment and to live the best quality of life that they can. And that's I mean, I believe that healthcare is a human right. So yeah, I think you just need to in some kind of way make peace with it. It took me a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say, promote? Any words of wisdom? The mic is all yours.
Well, first of all, I'm a podcaster. You will never take the mic away. I don't know if I have any wisdom. I think about this a lot, that as I get older, you certainly understand more things. And the young people are just tired. They're just like, oh, shut up. I don't want to hear it. But you do realize a lot more things. You realize what's important to you as you get older. And your health is important, but also being kind and reaching out to other people and making connections with them is also important. And in the patient community, we need to support one another, because when we work together, we can achieve so much. We can help one another. We can push legislation that helps everybody. We can push our providers to be better and to provide better treatment for the next patient that comes through the door. And I think too that thinking about things in this way is helpful, because if you're thinking outside of yourself, then you sort of have less focus on what's going on with you, and helping other people just brings so many rewards. So I guess that's my words of wisdom, is that to get involved in the patient advocacy community in whatever way aligns with you, and try to help the next patient who is just like you and is, wondering and worried and scared, but you can be there to help them.
Sounds good. All her information is in the description below. Thank you, Amber, for coming on here. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. And I'll see everyone next time. Bye.